Roger. Ready to move out.
Yes, it is another edition of the great show that we do for you here on the MFN network. It is Bell&Company. That's me talking again. I like to play that and hear Libby, who, by the way, is not with us today. She's at a Christmas party. I am Mario J. Bell of Bell&Company. I'm actually solo today. It's all is calm, all is bright here in the studio. It's just me. This doesn't happen very often. Normally we got a full house here, but it is our Christmas special. I did mention it online on the socials for everybody. So if they don't see it now, they'll see our Christmas special on the podcast and, of course, the recorded Facebook and YouTube stuff. But so I've got a pretty cool show for you this evening. I may be having a caller. May surprise you with the caller. We'll see. I don't think so, because obviously it's for people who don't know, I'm doing this the week before Christmas, and a lot of people are already out of town. Man, the stat I heard is like 120 million people are traveling in the next week to 2 weeks. I'm like, wow, I'm going to be one of them on a plane. But what I thought was interesting, that's why I brought it up, is that most people are driving. I would have thought it'd be the other way around, but I guess getting in the car with the family is still the thing to do. Just like Christmas vacation, or actually that would have been just vacation, because at Christmas they were at home. But anyway, where you go get the tree and all that stuff, and then you're with family and you're driving. But no, I'm flying. I'm one of the lucky ones, headed south for the winter. Well, actually only for a couple weeks. So this will be the last show actually that we do this year, because I won't be here. So I'll be back the first week of the new year to have fun with you, entertain you, make some new announcements. We're doing a little expansion here, which you really can't tell as nobody's here with me, but I'm kind of pre-announcing the announcement. So stay tuned for more here on Bell&Company on Intellectual Radio, your source for a lot of fun stuff and great interviews. We did so much good stuff this year. To recap, we started out with Libby. I interviewed on the phone, my co-host, the dummy, the doll. And then I had a great one a couple weeks in. I did Frank Sinatra's opening act. Was Tom Dreesen was with us, and it just keeps getting better and better. We've had the LA Guns bass guitarist. So that was cool. We've had a lot of great ones, a lot of local people that, I like featuring people that are maybe you might not see on the national spotlight, I should say, but they're, pretty well known around the area. So we like to have them on the show, and we'll continue doing that in the new year. I don't want to change. We might add a few more segments. We'll still, I'm sure, hear from Rich G, your entertainment concierge, and he also is a barter person. So if you want to get stuff and you want to trade, he can help you with that. And he's got everything from shows to even automotive, beauty salons, hotels. He's got everything. So we'll hear more from Rich. We might even get a surprise call from him tonight as well. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't need callers, because I've got enough stuff to talk about just by myself, which, again, doesn't happen very often here on Bell&Company, because, I like to have my crew with me, the peeps. But again, they're doing their things, and I want to congratulate Joe on his book that's out. Joe Brunker, one of our crew here, he just got the Henry the Hippo book that he's doing. That's published. He's got copies that are signed and numbered, so you got to get in touch with Joe Brunker if you want to get a copy of that book, and that's on social media. JoeBrunker. You'll find him, and he can get you a copy. I'm not sure what website is, but you can just contact Joe and he'll give you the scoop. And then, of course, he did his play. That's one of the reasons he's not here today. He was finishing up. They did like a late matinee today with the day 3 of the Christmas Carol. Joe was a big part of the Christmas Carol out in Plainfield, Illinois. For people in the suburbs, they know Plainfield, Illinois. The Plainfield Players. It's a newer theater there, so you guys got to check it out. But yeah, that was Joe's reason for not being here. And again, like I said, Libby, she's out partying somewhere, so they're doing an early Christmas party, I guess. So that's why I'm solo basically. But that doesn't mean, like I said, that I don't have anything to talk about. This is something that I just noticed earlier today, and I don't know why I've never heard this. I don't always just listen to podcasts and watch them on YouTube and stuff. I was listening to the '80s channel on a network I won't mention. Starts with an S. Anyway, and they brought up something that I thought was really cool, and it relates to my one of my first stories here. Uh, the song by this band, and I'll tell you about the story. But the band Hall and Oates, from the everybody knows them. They had a ton of hits in the 1980s, but they even have an album I'll talk about in a second that came out. Was actually their last album that they did in a studio. That wasn't singles or special live performance, etc., etc. But anyway, the band Hall and Oates did a song that everybody I'm sure has heard of, "Man Eater." I think it was from 1982, I believe. I know early 80s, very early 80s. Know that for sure without checking. But anyway, the song "Maneater," I just heard this today. I can't believe I didn't know this. The song "Maneater" is about the city of New York, as in New York, the Big Apple, New York, New York. And, I always thought, like probably most people aren't paying attention, thought they were just talking about some kind of crazy lady, right? A woman, a womanizer, or a woman that kind of a little bit stalkerish, whatever you want to call it. But nope, it's about the city of New York. Which now, when I listen to the lyrics, and you'll probably go back and want to listen, the song "Maneater," just like it sounds, Maneater by Hall and Oates. The lyrics make a lot more sense now, which is I thought that was a crazy fun fact. Like I said, I've heard the song over and over and over again. Never knew that. I don't know why I never knew that. Being a DJ, you think you would know, but nope, never heard that one until today. So interesting fun fact for you there from the band Hall and Oates. And again, like I said, speaking of Hall and Oates, they did have a Christmas album. I don't think people would realize that maybe weren't listening to their stuff in the 2000s, because they just recently had a big fallout in the media too. I mean, it was all over the place in the last couple of years. I can't remember. One of them wanted the rights to all the songs or something. It got ugly, and so they're obviously not making any new stuff, but they're older anyway. So I wasn't expecting a lot of new stuff from them anyway. But they did do their last studio album, which I'll tell you about here. Um, was a Christmas album, like I said. I'm repeating myself here, but I want to find the article. Here we go. Anyway, "Home for Christmas," Hall and Oates. It was their 18th and final studio album. Okay, and it was actually their only full album they did of Christmas music, because they did have an album, or they did have songs, like one of them was "Jingle Bell Rock," but not a full album. And so this was released, at least in the US, back in 2006, or right before Christmas of 2006. And a portion of that was for the Toys for Tots program. It was actually, at the time in 2006, only available at a store called Trans World Entertainment, TWE Music. And then obviously years after, it became available everywhere, pretty much anywhere you can find music, you can find this album now. But anyway, it's called "Home for Christmas" by Daryl Hall and John Oates. And again, October of 2006 when it actually came out. And I like who produced it with them. Tom T-Bone Wolk was one of the producers there. And then, of course, Daryl Hall does a lot of producing for most of their albums. But again, that was, the only album they released in recent time. Obviously, previously, Hall and Oates released promotional singles, like I mentioned, the Jingle Bell Rock one, but that was in the early '80s. And it actually had, the cool thing about that I want to mention, is it actually had them singing like individually on each side of the album, because that was, or at the single, I should say, because that was when you still had records 45. So that you can check that out as well, for Christmas music from Hall and Oates. And this one from 2006, the last studio album I'm talking about, actually featured two new songs that they both wrote together: "No Child Should Ever Cry on Christmas" and "Home for Christmas." So and it also includes and you got to check this out. You're going to really enjoy it. Check it out. "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear," which and it actually became this song. "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear," from their 18th and final studio album together, and it was a Christmas album again. Became a number one hit, adult contemporary hit. So that's kind of crazy. So there's a little Christmas info from Hall and Oates, but I wanted to talk a little Christmas stuff, but I definitely wanted to bring up the man eater thing too. I thought that was crazy. So there you go. That's my first Christmas thing I wanted to bring up. And then the other thing I want to talk about is something that, and every time I tell Libby about it, she laughs and kind of frowns about it. She says that's got to smell. But I have, if people want to call in, you can. We are live on the Christmas weekend there, right before Christmas here in 2024. They can call, or you can call, I should say, 708 223 8953 if you're watching. Again, 708 223 8953. And we could, chat a little bit if you have something you want to bring up Christmassy related. So that's available. But anyway, I was telling Libby about traditions that we have in our family. I happen to be, I may not look it, I'm Italian American, French, and German. So I'm I always make the joke to people. Yeah, I used to fight with myself back in the World War. But anyway, back to the story. We have very unique traditions that are, I guess, kind of a mixture of all three cultures. I don't know. I know the Italian one is the one that everybody's gonna be like, "What are you talking about?" And Libby, just like I said, totally just gets grossed out when she hears about it. And the dish is called bagna calda, and don't quote me on how to spell it. It's an Italian term for basically just means hot plate, and that's exactly what we do. It is, it's really hot. It's steaming. It's a mix of, and it's kind of burned by the time. If you wait too long, it gets burned, and then you got vegetables in there that are all burned up. But it's a mixture, and this is the fun part that Libby always goes, "Ooh," because it does smell. I have to admit, it has. Some people put sardines, but most people, most Italians, and I know, put anchovies, tons of butter, tons of garlic, and a little bit of olive oil, just a little bit, just to kind of help with the thickness. But that even burns off after a while, and that's what mixes the sauce. So it's kind of like an olio or olio, however you say that, but it's definitely more intense in terms of the flavors. Like I said, Libby doesn't really care for it, but sometimes if you don't do it right, you'll get the pieces of the anchovies in there. It's almost, it feels like you're getting a little grit, but it's actually probably not that good for you. It might be a little dangerous. Is it has the, like, the bones of the actual fillet of the anchovy, because anchovies are what, about an inch, maybe inch and a half long. They're really small, but that doesn't mean they don't have parts in there, right? So anyway, so you mix all that together. It probably takes about 10, maybe 15 minutes to get the hot plate hot. And it's just like a little, like, if you're, what it's kind of like? It's Italian, it's Italy's version, or Italian Americans version. I'm pretty sure it was from Italy as well. Um, it's that their version of, like, fondue. Everybody was doing fondue in the 70s and 1970s and 80s. That's what it's a lot like, actually. Just spicier, because it's got all the garlic and the olive oil. It doesn't have cheese. You don't put cheese in it. But my favorite thing to eat in it, and people laugh at me about this, I like I laugh thinking about it. I like cabbage, believe it or not. So instead of, rolling it up, putting meat in it and having like a stuffed cabbage, I just lay it in the hot pan, or the plate, whatever you call those things, and let it simmer. And then I put a ton. I love this. This is a good part. Everybody will like this one. Trust me, even vegetarians, because there is some fish in it. So the vegetarians out there are like, why you're eating all this meat? No, it burns up. You don't even know the fish was there. Really, trust me, it's okay. I think it's vegetarian friendly, but maybe not. But whatever. I love it. But again, I put cauliflower in it, lots of cauliflower, and you got to just steam it just briefly before you put in, maybe a minute or two, just to get it from being really hard. And you just dip this in the sauce, and again, it just sits there and simmers and simmers, and it gets to where it's boiling. And I'm telling you, it tastes so good. If you like garlic, you like the taste of, and you really don't taste the anchovies, but just maybe a little bit of the fish, and then of course the butter. It's my favorite part. If I just sautéed butter, I would be satisfied. But anyway, mix it all together. It's really good. But the part that is funny that Libby always laughs about is we eat that as a meal, not an appetizer. That is our Christmas, and I'll be doing it this year. our Christmas Eve, not Christmas Day, but Christmas Eve tradition. And as far as I know, friends of the family are still doing it. I know my uncle still does it. I know one of my aunts still does it. Obviously, my family, my brother, we do it. But yeah, you got to do it. You go to eat this for dinner. You know, you have appetizers, you have your charcuterie, or however you say that. You know, your good like meats and cheeses, and maybe salad before. But then the main meal of the night, and we usually do this around 4, somewhere in there, maybe 5. So it's kind of an early meal because then a lot of people go to like midnight mass or a late mass on Christmas Eve, especially if you're Italian Catholic, right? But anyway, so it's called bagna calda. We eat it as the main meal, done around, like I said, 4 or 5, and then we usually have other things going on. Sometimes we do the presents depending upon the situation. We're going to see people the next day, and then we go to church. So, been doing it for my whole life. I didn't like it when I was a kid, but I love it now. And I don't know, maybe it's, I don't know, for younger kids, maybe it's a little too spicy or whatever, then too garlicky for them. But man, once you get used to eating it, and then the other thing you can dip in it, and it kind of ends up being like garlic bread, is just regular like a loaf of bread, like Italian bread. Like I'll throw some names out because I'm talking to them about sponsorship. Toronto or Ganella bread out of Chicago. If you're in the Chicago area, you can get Toronto Ganella bread. Anyway, you dip that in. Oh man, it's a little sopping wet though. It's kind of like eating in Chicago, and people who know around the country, Italian beef. The bread does get a little wet, but it doesn't matter. The flavor is just so beautiful. I mean, I now I'm getting hungry. I want it right now. But no, that's coming on. That's a Christmas Eve tradition. Great platter for people who like their garlics and butter. I don't know how diet healthy friendly it is, but I know lately in the last couple of years at least, I mean, I'm seeing it all over on say Instagram posts, Facebook, other social media, even traditional news media, that butter is way better for you than some of the seed oils. Even could be better than, believe it or not, olive oil. I don't know if I believe that one, but that's what a lot of the studies are showing now. And also, don't be afraid of eating a lot of eggs. That's like the latest tradition. So again, I think this is, and again, most people only eat this once a year, so you don't have to so much worry about being unhealthy. It is a holiday meal, but again, I don't think it's as bad as people would think. Again, it's called bagna calda. I guess it translates to hot plate or something hot. And you got to try it. If you want to contact me on social media, I can give you the recipe again, because there's a certain amount of butter you put in. There's a certain amount of garlic you're supposed to put in. You only have so many cans of anchovies, but we don't always follow it. You know, to the T, I guess would be a way to say it, but we do follow it pretty closely because you don't want to overpower like one of those ingredients. But anyway, I'll give you the ingredients if you want it. You can go to well, the website's not ready yet. That's another thing I'm doing in the new year. We'll have the website mariojbell.com. That's Marioj, the letter J, Bell.com, coming soon. But right now, you just have to find me on social media. We do have a fan page, of course, for Bell&Company. It's actually under a show we did before here, called Inspired and Motivated, but you see the Bell&Company logo and everything. So you can find me that way on Facebook, and I'll give you the recipe. But I'm telling you, if you have an opportunity to do this dish, you got to try it at least once in your life. Trust me, can put it on the bucket list. But anyway, so that's my Christmas tradition, and I'm sure everybody has a lot of their own traditions and eating certain foods, maybe only around Christmas. Another big one for me, not just this meal, because that's obviously, like I said, basically our main dish for Christmas Eve. And then, sometimes we'll reheat it even, because that was another thing. You can leave it in the dish and reheat it if you really want to, if you don't burn it too badly. But anyway, we'll eat it the next day. But another big one, and this again, maybe more Italian than anything, is the cookies we make. We make these little, there's a couple versions. I have like, they're like really doughy cookies with the sprinkles on top, but they're really super sweet, and they almost are like a butter cookie, but like doughy version of it. So it's like a more of a gooey butter cookie. Oh man, you got to have some of those. You got to come to my house for those, because I don't know too many people who make them like that. And another one, and you can get these anywhere, any store now, especially in the Chicago area. They're called Pizzelles, Pazelles, is the American version of the spelling that I know. but they are great. They're real thin. They're made with a little bit of, and some people put anise in it. I don't like with anise, anise. No, no, no. Just vanilla extract, a lot of vanilla extract. And this is probably not good for somebody like me that had some illnesses, like some diabetes issues and all that. But sugar, tons of butter, obviously the dough for it, lots of vanilla extract, and then you cook it. And again, if you're going to buy them in the store, they're already obviously made. But if you're going to do it at home, you need like a waffle iron because instead of making waffles, you're making pizzelles. So that's another one that we do between the bagna calda is kind of how it, if you spell it out, it kind of sounds like that. Pizzelles and the Italian cookies that, like I said, are kind of a unique butter cookie because it's more doughy. And then obviously we'll have the candy, and sometimes we do nut cups. Not every year, but those are usually like I'm not exactly sure what's in them. Obviously, a lot of sugar, brown sugar. I think cinnamon, and I'm pretty sure they're pecans. Don't quote me on that. It's either pecans and or walnuts or both. But anyway, they're little cups. So that's another one we do. Usually at Christmas, sometimes at Thanksgiving. So these are my traditions. I hope you think about trying this sometimes. And, I hope you guys are enjoying all of your traditions because, man, there are so many things out there that people do. And, people that don't know the Italian way, or this tradition are really kind of weirded out by those cookies and the bagna calda. But I'm telling you, it could be just like an olio, really, which is kind of the same sauce, but maybe not as garlic. And I don't think they put the anchovies in the olio sauce. But anyway, so that's for everybody to try out, courtesy of Mario J. Bell and Bell&Company show. There's my if you want to try it, you don't have anything big going, you can try that dish. And then of course we've also done like Christmas Day. We do the ham. I don't know about everybody else. People do that on Easter. We do it on Christmas too. I even sometimes eat that. I asked to make it on Thanksgiving because I'm not a fan of turkey. So I'm sure that's a more widely known tradition of eating ham because I know that a lot of people do that one. Unless, of course, you don't eat meat or maybe a certain religious background, you might not do it. But again, that's our Christmas Eve, Christmas Day tradition. And I hope everybody tries it one day, maybe even this year, now that you heard it on the show right before Christmas. So anyway, so that's my tradition. But I did definitely want to talk about some other stuff that happens on Christmas holiday. Speaking of traditions, hold on one second. There we go. That's my quick commercial break. And now back to the story. Anyway, so big tradition, not necessarily just with food, but I was researching on some stuff for the foods thing, and I came up with this post, and I just think this is really cool. And I kind of already talked about it. A big one that people do, and I just like I said, the Christmas cookies, but maybe not the Italian version, just a Christmas cookie in general. This is something this really surprised me. This is something that dates back to like early ancient times when actually people were gathering to feast before the cold weather came in. So it wasn't necessarily just at Christmas. It was just when the fall was coming and they're getting ready for, to hunker down for the winters. So that's how that tradition started of even making cookies during Christmas that had like I guess they had a religious thing tied in with them too. But anyway, that's where that came from. And then another one that I thought was cool, and I've never heard this before, but writing a letter to somebody that isn't something that, we've done since the dawn of time. It's more of a British tradition. And I thought this was really interesting. British tradition that actually started around 1843. So what is that? Now you're going to make me do math here on the show, but fairly new tradition within 200 years, which really surprised me. Like I said, I would have thought, Columbus is sailing and he's sending Christmas cards back home while he's sailing over here, right? But nope, 1843, and again started in Britain. So interesting. And then another one that I really like, and I always thought, and I'm really surprised about this. I thought this was just a Catholic thing. Roman Catholic tradition is a calendar marking the holiday right before Christmas or coming up to the holiday of Christmas, Advent. So Advent calendars, and you can buy them everywhere. A lot of times they have candy inside of them when you open a little door, but that is actually a tradition that originated in the 19th century. So again, I guess 1800s, from Germany, because German Protestants would actually mark all of the days leading up to Christmas by using this type of calendar. And again, nowadays you get them; they're usually got candy. You open a little door, you got candy in there, and then it says something. So that's a really cool tradition, an advent calendar. I love it. And according to this, the Germans weren't necessarily writing anything on it. It was just a date, and they would mark off, and they would keep track because Advent starts. Oh, no, I'm Catholic. You put me on the spot here. It's what is it like? Right after Thanksgiving, basically, you start the season of Advent, and that's when that started. So anyway, and then another big one. I always wonder about this because I see, and I'm like, is it mostly a religious thing? Because some houses don't, and I thought it was just maybe people are older, they just don't get around to doing it. Christmas lights, Christmas tree lights, and just lights in general. That is actually a tradition that comes from the Christian belief that Jesus is the light of the world. So not every religion does it, but obviously the Christians, Catholics, of course, too. Um, kind of signifying that here he's going to be born, and there you go, the light of the world. So I always kind of wondered why are some houses have certain colors of lights, but I've heard that in the Jewish tradition, like the blue light means something. I don't quote me on what it is. I didn't research that. I'm just giving you the tradition stuff, but there is some meaning to actually having blue lights on a tree. I think nowadays a lot of people buy like the LED lights, and they're more of a white or a blue than they are the old fashioned, like they look almost yellow. But anyway, so that's where Christmas tree lights came from to signify Jesus as the light of the world. So that was cool. And then this is another one that I would have thought goes way back to like even whenever they started pretending that, or excuse me, talking about Santa Claus. Santa Claus is real. Anyway, but writing letters to Santa. And then for obviously people know what it is, but maybe you don't. Okay, for people that don't. Anyway, this is a tradition where children write letters to Santa Claus. And then they go ahead and they leave them out cookies and maybe food like milk or carrots for the reindeer, even. And that's something that has been going on, like I said, since the advent of people talking about Santa Claus or Saint Nick. So, again, hundreds of years on that one. And now this this next one I always laugh about because my nephew would actually dress as this, which always cracked me up. I think he may still do it. He just turned 14. He'll probably still do it. Um, the Elf on the Shelf. And again, this is a newer tradition that just started. Well, it actually came. I'll tell you, it's a tradition that comes from the children's story about Santa's elves who report back to Santa on all of the kids' behavior. So, the naughty or nice list. That's how Santa finds out he's got the elves on the shelf. They're keeping an eye on you. And again, that's from that story, but that's a fairly newer tradition. I know that's only something that's been going on, at least that I've seen it since like the 1990s, maybe even soon later than that. But again, the elf on the shelf is a guy, a little comical looking guy. You can pose him different ways, and he's got he looks like the elf with the elf hat on and the green and white. And I've seen different variations on him, but that's the main one. So yeah, that's Elf on a Shelf, which I thought was fun. Like I said, my 14-year-old nephew may be dressing as him again this year. We'll see. Getting kind of old. And speaking of my 14-year-old nephew, gotta give him props. He just won a tournament. Congratulations, Roman. Roman's my nephew, for winning a tournament down with his. It's actually the minor league team. It's their club that they train kids to get into the minor league to then go into the pros down in North Carolina. So pretty impressive. They won a tournament, big tournament in northern Florida, I think it was. I forget exactly where it was, but I wanted to say hello and congrats to Roman on that. So that's pretty cool. And again, he might be the elf on the shelf. So if you see my Facebook post, you'll look for that. But anyway, another tradition. There's a few more here, and this is a good one. And I've wondered about this too. Where in the heck did they come up with this? It's Christmas stockings, and that actually comes from the story of Saint Nick throwing bags of gold into stockings that are hung by the fireplace. So you hear the Christmas story. That's actually what that's based on. So you have the, obviously different variations of stockings or socks, whatever. And but nowadays people just put whatever in there. It's got your name on it: Mara J. Bell, Libby, Joe, and Christmas gifts right by the fireplace, or near the tree somewhere. The Christmas tree, they usually have them, but the actual tradition started where they literally would put the stocking right on the fireplace. So I always wonder about that. How did they not burn down the house? But whatever. It's been done for a long time, several, like hundreds of years. Because again, the story of Saint Nick and Santa Claus is hundreds of years old, obviously. And then a real big one, and the final one, and this kind of relates to, if you're not really religious and you don't necessarily believe that Jesus was born around Christmas, and you're not Catholic or whatever, the Christmas tree itself is actually a tradition that comes from a pagan tradition. It's a pagan European tree worship. How about that? Pagan European tree worship. I want to make sure I said that right. And that basically came from a Scandinavian custom. So it's amazing how we incorporate things, especially in the USA, something like that you just wouldn't give it a thought. Most people just think about Jesus and church in December, and a lot of presents, Santa Claus, etc., etc. But no, this is actually something that was going on, before the Christians were calling it a Christmas tree. It was a European Scandinavian thing. So I'm sure the trees were probably a lot taller too, because now you can get a fake tree at the dollar store, for like $5. That obviously not real, but this was, they chop them down in the forest, like you saw in Christmas Vacation, the movie. Even though they didn't travel, they still went and got their tree. But yeah, so that was a pretty interesting fun fact there. European Scandinavian, which maybe I've heard that before, but I don't know if I would have thought about that. So anyway, that's about all I have. I just wanted to make sure I came and said Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Kwanzaa. What are the other ones? Happy Hanukkah coming up here. Actually, this year the Hanukkah holiday starts right after Christmas. So, and whenever I think of Hanukkah, I always think of Hanukkah Harry and Saturday Night Live from the 1980s. So now I'm dating myself, but if you haven't seen it, watch Hanukkah Harry from Saturday Night Live. It's John Lovitz, JonLovitz. Watch him on clips on YouTube, wherever you can find him. It's hilarious. But anyway, that's coming up right after Christmas. And then, of course, the New Year's holiday, which I won't be here for that either. I'll be, at that point, I think we're going to be hunting in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So that ought to be interesting. We'll bring home the New Year's goose instead of the Christmas goose. But yeah, so I wanted to say thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed all these shows. Thanks to Earl and Wanda over at Intellectual Radio. Really appreciate you guys. It's been fun. And again, we will be back next year. We're not going anywhere, just for a break. Obviously, I'm not going to be here, so I'm not going to phone it in. So everybody, again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. Take care, and we'll see you next time right here on Bell&Company. Bye, everybody.